Jashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, text number 25. Vidura Uvacha Jnanam Param Svaatma Raha Prakasham Yat Aha Yoga Ishvaraha Te Vaktum Bhavan Na Arhati Yat Hi Vishnoh Brityaha Sva Britya Artha Kritaha Charanti. Viduro Uvacha Jnanam Param Svatma Rahaf Prakasham Yadaha Yogeshwara Ishvaraste Vaktum Bhavanor Arhati Yadhi Vishnor Brityasva Brityartha Kritaschharanti. Viduro Vacha Jnanam Param Svatma Rahaf Prakasham Yad Aha Yogeshwara Ishvaraste Vaktum Bhavano Arhati Yadhi Vishnor Brityasva Brityartha Kritaschharanti. Viduro Vacha Jnanam Param Svatma Rahaf Prakasham Yad Aha Yogeshwara Ishvaraste Vaktum Bhavano Rati Yadhi Vishnor Brityasva Brityartha Kritaschharanti. Please repeat.
Vidura Uvacha Jnanam Param Svatmarah Prakasham Yadaha Yogeshwara Ishvaraste Bhaktum Bhavano Hati Yadhi Vishnu Vrityasva Vrityartha Kritaschharanti. Vidura Vacha Jnanam Param Svatmarah Prakasham Yad Aha Yogeshwara Ishvaraste yadhi Vishnu. Bhritya subhrityartha kritaschranti. Bhaktum bhavanyorhati yadhi Vishnu. Bhritya subhrityartha kritaschranti.
Mataji? Vidura uvacha. Vidura said, Jnanam, knowledge. Param, transcendental. Swa-atma, regarding the self. Rahaha, mystery. Prakasham, enlightening. Yat, that which. Aha, said. Yoga Ishwaraha, the master of all mystics. Ishwaraha, the Lord. Te, unto you. Vaktum, to narrate. Bhavan, your good self. Naha, unto me. Arhati, deserve. Yat, for. He, reason of. Vishnu, of Lord Vishnu. Brityaha, servants. Svabritya arthakritaha, for the interests of their servants. Charanti, do wonder. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Vidura said, O Uddhava, because the servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wonder in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord Himself. Purport. The servants of the Lord are actually the servants of society. They have no interest in human society other than to enlighten it in transcendental knowledge. They are interested in imparting knowledge of the relationship of the living being with the Supreme Lord, the activities in that transcendental relationship, and the ultimate goal of life. That is the real knowledge which can help society achieve the real aim of human welfare. Knowledge in the matter of the bodily necessities of eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing, transformed into various branches of advancement of knowledge, is all temporary. A living being is not the material body, but an eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Being, and thus revival of his self-knowledge is essential. Without this knowledge, the human life is baffled. The servants of the Lord, Vishnu, are entrusted with this responsible work. So they wander all over the world and to all other planets in the universe. Thus, the knowledge which was received by Uddhava directly from the Lord deserves to be distributed in human society, especially to persons like Vidura, who are highly advanced in the devotional service of the Lord. Real transcendental knowledge descends from the disciplic succession from the Lord to Uddhava, from Uddhava to Vidura, and so on. Such supreme transcendental knowledge is not possible to achieve by the process of imperfect speculation as performed by the so-called learned, mundane wranglers. Vidura was anxious to know from Uddhava that confidential knowledge known as Paramam Stitim, in which the Lord is known by his transcendental pastimes. Although Vidura was older than Uddhava, he was anxious to become a servant of Uddhava in the transcendental relationship. This formula of transcendental disciplic succession is taught by Lord Chaitanya also. Lord Chaitanya advises that one receive transcendental knowledge from anyone, whether a Brahmana or a Shudra, a householder or a sannyasi, provided that person is factually conversant with the science of Krishna. A person who knows the science of Krishna is factually a bona fide spiritual master. Om Agyana Timurandasya Gananjana Shalakiya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadah Mahyam Tadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshta Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Shijivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivishaka Vitamshcha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostiti Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhi Vranavineshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Pare Vanchaka Patu Beshcha Kripasundu Biyebacha Patitanam Pavane Pyo Vaishnava Pyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Bhaktivikasa Swamin Itinamane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Bhaktivedanta Swamin Itinamane Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pasharne Nirvashesha Shunivadi Paschatya Dishtarne Bhuter Mahadvir Yamafpur Vibur Nirmaya Shatiyat Amushi Purashaha Bhungti Ganan Shurasha Shodashatmaka Solanka Bhagavan Vashamsime. I guess the translation again. Uddhava, because the servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others, it is quite fit that you kindly describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord himself. So, I'll give some context and then I'll get to the purport a little bit. I'll just speak on the verse a little bit. So here, actually not here, before it comes. Well, first, the general principle. So, Vidura is imploring Uddhava to speak to him what he learned, basically. What did he learn? Are you on this? Can you go to verse 13 of the same chapter? So, there's a lot of very similar words here. Here today, we have Jnanam Param Svatma Rahaf Prakasham. In verse 13, you can go to the Sanskrit, and then I'll go down. The same thing, Jnanam Param, the highest knowledge. This Param Jnanam, and then Man Mahimavapasam. Yeah, so it means the same thing, basically. There's rahasyam, that's rahaha prakasham, svatama rahaha prakasham, this secret knowledge. This secret knowledge is nothing more than this man mahima vapasam, that Krishna spoke to Lord Brahma at the beginning. We went over that some months ago, the Chatra Shloki Bhagavatam, and Krishna spoke different things. In essence, he spoke his glories to Lord Brahma, which is being said here. In the translation, it says, O Uddhava, Krishna is speaking here to Uddhava, we just read this some days ago. In the lotus millennium of the days of yore, at the beginning of creation, I spoke unto Brahma, who is situated on the lotus that grows out of my navel, about my transcendental glories, which the great sages describe as Srimad Bhagavatam. And in text 18, actually, you could go to that. I'm just kind of like recapping. In text 18, if you go to the Sanskrit, I'm sorry. I just noticed this, I was flipping through, I saw the same thing. The same thing, Jnanam Param Svatmaraha Prakasham. The same thing is coming here, and then the other Sanskrit is different. But Uddhava says to Krishna, my Lord, kindly explain to us, if you think us competent to receive it, that transcendental knowledge which you spoke to Lord Brahma about yourself and what you explained before to Brahmaji, etc. So Uddhava is saying, so he told to Krishna, Jnanam param svatma rahaf prakasham. Please speak to me this knowledge, this jnanam param. And then Vidura, he's saying the same thing to Uddhava. Please speak to me, jnanam param svatma rahaf prakasham. It's literally the same words that are used. And then, so this specifically, you can go to the next verse, verse 19. I don't think I was sitting in this class, but there was this verse, which is one of the important ones. Iti avedita hardaya mahyam sa bhagavan paraha adidir sharavindaksha atmanaf param stitim. So this paramam stitim, sorry. So this paramam stitim, this is what we're talking about. Prabhupada here he gives the translation, transcendental situation. It's pretty easy to understand. Sta means like situated, like stanam or stitim, it means like place. And para means like transcendental. So, and then is like some like version of the word, basically, like an object. So paramam stitim means like that highest place, basically. It can also refer to like the highest knowledge. So, Uddhava says here, when I expressed my heartfelt desires unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lotus-eyed Lord instructed me about his transcendental situation. So Krishna, condensing what I just said, so Uddhava asked Krishna, please explain this to me, this knowledge which he spoke to Lord Brahma. But Uddhava is even more dear to Krishna than the Lord of Brahma. So not only did Uddhava get the knowledge that Krishna spoke to Lord of Brahma, I'm not going to go over that. It's the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam. Basically, you could take it in many different ways. I think there was a seminar here on it when I was in India. So basically, Krishna gave Brahma knowledge of what is spirit, what is matter, and who is the controller of both. And more importantly, he gave also knowledge of Brahma of his own form, which previously Brahma didn't have knowledge of. And also, even higher than that, not necessarily higher, but in the most confidential knowledge, Krishna gave Lord Brahma knowledge of devotional service, of prema bhakti, of loving devotional service unto him. Details weren't given though. And so these details were even further explained to Uddhava. And Prabhupada makes the point in this purport to this verse. Paramam stitim are significant in this verse. The Lord's transcendental situation was not even spoken of to Brahma when the 4 verses of the Bhagavatam were explained. So that's pretty amazing. Even though Brahma saw Krishna, he shook hands with Krishna. He saw him and Krishna spoke to him. They had a conversation. But still, and Krishna instructed Lord Brahma. But Lord Brahma, he didn't receive the knowledge that Uddhava received on one level. Although the knowledge is the same, there are gradations of the knowledge. Uddhava got a more secret form of that knowledge. And Prabhupada continues that this transcendental situation comprises his dealings with devotees engaged in transcendental loving service as exhibited at Dwarka and Vrindavan. When the Lord explained his specific transcendental situation, it was meant for Uddhava only, and therefore Uddhava particularly said, Mahyam, unto me, etc. So anyway, there are other things like that. And Prabhupada, he concludes that the Lord's activities in confidential love are very rarely disclosed. They weren't disclosed to Brahma, even though he is a devotee and he's the head of the universe. And Krishna, he was pleased with Lord Brahma's penance, and he revealed himself unto Lord Brahma. Still, Krishna didn't give Lord Brahma full knowledge. So that's pretty amazing. But he gave Uddhava that knowledge. This word is coming in today's verse, and in the 18th verse, this rahaha, secret, this mystery. Actually, in one sense, so Vidura is wanting to know this knowledge that was spoken specifically to Uddhava, because he knows Uddhava, he may not have specifics, but he knows Uddhava got some knowledge that he doesn't know. He knows Uddhava has something special. And actually, Uddhava, in one way, even though Vidura is asking Uddhava to talk about it, already Uddhava kind of talked about it in the first chapter, not first chapter, second chapter, third chapter, and technically fourth chapter too, a little bit, where Uddhava exhibits symptoms of ecstasy. If you remember way back, Grimoires was talking on those verses. He exhibits symptoms of ecstasy, and then he speaks about Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan, out of Dwarka. So already Uddhava has already kind of talked about this. Vidura is wanting to know more, obviously being a devotee himself. He's a Mahajan, he's Yamaraj. He's already a devotee, but he's wanting entrance into these confidential pastimes, which previously, presumably, he didn't have so much information about. He may have heard about, but he was involved in Dwarka, or not so much in Dwarka, but he had knowledge of Dwarka, etc. He wasn't so much involved there personally, though, because he was in a different court, court of the Kurus. So, Vidura is wanting this knowledge. So he's gotten a taste of this knowledge. He's gotten a drop of this knowledge. Uddhava is spoken something brief. So Vidura is naturally wanting to hear more and more and more, because already being a devotee is very relishable to hear these things. So he's imploring Uddhava to speak on like this. So Uddhava had already spoke this, and specifically he wants to know about these confidential pastimes. Rahaha, Svaatma Rahaha Prakasham. So if you go to 2931, if you can pull up, in the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Actually, I think this is coming before then. And this comes in a few different places, but I just marked one of them. Yeah, this is the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha is Krishna speaking to Brahma. It's the same thing. Jnanam parama guhyam me yad vijnana samanvitam Sarahasyam tad angam cha grinami gaditam maya. So, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential, and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up very carefully. You can go to the Sanskrit. I'll just make so this is kind of like a preface to the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam, the first words that Krishna speaks to Lord Brahma. The same thing is here. Jnanam paramam guhyam. This confidential knowledge about myself, and then also there, if you see that the word comes, sa rahasyam. Sa means with, rahasyam means like the same word, secret. So Lord Brahma was also given this secret. The Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam, it contains a secret. Krishna talks about a secret that's in the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Here, in the translation, Prabhupada spoils the secret, and he translates it as this knowledge which is to be taken with devotional service. So the secret in the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam is devotional service, obviously. So Lord Brahma was given a glimpse of the secret in one way, but Vidura is wanting to know more about the secrets. So a secret, it's contained there, but Vidura wanted an explanation. So a secret is something that's very rare, extremely rare, Jiva Goswami says, this rahasa. And a secret is normally covered over by other things. Either you don't disclose a secret to anybody and everybody, or if you can't disclose it, or if it's difficult to hide, you cover it over with something else. Just like if you have a gym, for example, you don't, or if you have money in general, you don't go here. Well, some people do, I guess, nowadays, but generally, you don't go flouting it around, especially before bank accounts and things like that. You will keep your wealth hidden, especially valuable jewels like this. So it's something secret. You keep it covered. You don't disclose it to everyone. So similarly, too, devotional service to Krishna is normally covered for most people, and even for those who have knowledge of devotional service. They don't necessarily have knowledge of Krishna's confidential pastimes out of Vrindavan. For instance, there are many different examples like that. There's that verse that comes somewhere. It's quoting Chaitanya Charitamrita. That anyway, I forget the English. There's something starting along the lines that Vyasadeva may know, etc. may know, that he may know. So even among, I'm making the point, great personalities, it may not so much be known. Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan is a very elevated thing, especially the conjugal relationship. So Vidura was interested in this, and this is the topic that's being discussed. In general, knowledge of Krishna isn't discussed. People may have knowledge of Krishna, but they don't so much have knowledge of Krishna's devotional service. Even if they have knowledge of that, they don't understand the position of Krishna's devotional service. Prabhupada would say, in India, people are naturally Krishna conscious from birth. Naturally, they're Krishna conscious, but we see they're not Krishna conscious in one sense. They have knowledge of Krishna, but they don't know anything about Krishna. They don't know anything about Krishna's devotional service, about bhakti, etc. like this. because Krishna specifically hides himself from such people. You can pull up one more verse, 11:21-35. So Krishna, even to those who have knowledge of him, Krishna keeps himself covered. And 35 is 35. 11:21-35, yeah. Vida Brahmana Vishayas Trikanda Vishaya ime Paroksha Vada Rishaya Paroksham Mamacha Priyam. You can go down. This is Krishna speaking to Uddhava. So this is the same knowledge we're speaking about today. That Vidura wants to know. Krishna tells Uddhava, the Vedas, divided into 3 divisions, ultimately reveal the living entity as pure spiritual soul. The Vedic seers and mantras, however, deal in esoteric terms or indirect terms, paroksha. And I am also pleased by such confidential descriptions. So Krishna made the Vedas. The Vedas are eternal, but in one sense Krishna made them. You can say it like that. He manifested them. They're fashioned according to Krishna's desire. And the Vedas, they specifically deal with an indirect language that covers Krishna over. If you see the Upanishad, even the Vedanta Sutra, it doesn't, although you can derive a meaning from it, or extract it is maybe a better term, and our acharyas do so, Vedanta Sutra doesn't talk about Krishna. So even if you're to study a Vedanta Sutra as it is, you don't come to the conclusion of Krishna necessarily just by studying the sutras. Although the purpose of the Vedas and the purpose of the Vedanta Sutra is to understand Krishna. Just like there's that verse, Vedashta sarver ahameva vidya vedanta vedavid eva chaham. So the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. Krishna, who himself is the compiler of Vedanta and the knower of Vedanta, but he's done so, he's compiled it in such a way, he's made the Vedas in some way to cover himself over because he doesn't expose himself to anybody and everyone. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritaha. He keeps himself covered to those atheists who are envious towards him. And even for his devotees, of course this is a completely different situation. Krishna is revealed in different aspects to his different devotees. With the highest, although in one sense is all transcendently equal, is all transcendental, but the highest manifestation, the original, or the highest understanding of Krishna is Krishna in, the highest relationship one can have with Krishna is Krishna in conjugal love, let's say like that. So Krishna doesn't reveal this to anybody and everybody. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we have, for example, who's that? It was, I forget, it was somebody in Sri Rangam. I want to say it was one of the 6 Goswami's brothers. I forget. But there was some dialogue there between Lord Chaitanya and a devotee of Lord Ram. And I won't cover the whole thing, but basically, Lord Chaitanya was trying to impart knowledge that worship of Krishna is higher than even worship of Lord. You're worshiping Lord Ram, that's very nice. But Lakshmi herself, she herself desires to enter into the rasa dance of Lord Krishna. So even that he was a Vaishnava, but he didn't necessarily have that knowledge. And Lord Chaitanya wanted to give him that knowledge. Of course, he wanted to stay within his own relationship. He was satisfied like that. I'm just making the general point that this knowledge isn't necessarily exposed to anybody and everybody. It's very confidential. But to devotees, generally, Krishna reveals this knowledge. Vidura is getting this knowledge. He'll get this knowledge. In Bhagavad Gita, we have this verse, Idam tu te guhyam tamam, pravakshami nusuyave, this guhya tamam, most confidential knowledge. And the Gita, at least 2 or 3 times, I forget, Krishna tells Arjuna, I'm speaking to you confidential knowledge. And then he says, I'm speaking to you even more confidential knowledge. And then he says to him again, I'm speaking you to the most confidential knowledge, that man manabhava bhakti, etc., like this, just become my devotee. So unto his devotees, Krishna gives this knowledge. Unto non-devotees, generally not. Generally, Krishna doesn't necessarily do so. Lord Chaitanya does so, and even more so, even more so than that, Krishna's devotees do so. And that's the point in today's verse, that servants of Vishnu, the Lord, wander in the interest of serving others. Therefore, it's quite fit for you to describe this knowledge unto me. And Prabhupada in the purport, I'll just kind of go through it systematically. He says, the servants of the Lord are factually the servants of society. They have no interest in human society other than to enlighten it and transcend knowledge. They are interested in imparting knowledge of the relationship of the living being with the Supreme Lord, the activities in that transcendental relationship, and the ultimate goal of human life. So devotees, they impart to ignorant men, mudhas, knowledge of sambandha, abhyudaya, and prayojana, knowledge of who one is, how he has a relationship with Krishna, what he can do to revive that relationship, and what the ultimate goal is. And they don't necessarily have any interest in doing so. It's not that the devotees are paid to do so or something like this. They don't have, it's not of their own accord. Rather, it's out of affection for the Lord they do so, and affection for other living entities. And their distribution of this knowledge, knowledge in the matter of bodily necessities, of eating, sleeping, mating, and fearing, are all temporary, like this, and all their branches of transformation. So there's many types of knowledge. Devotees distribute knowledge, but we're concerned with this transcendental knowledge in relationship with Vishnu, Krishna. We want to give knowledge. Prabhupada, he says the greatest contribution to human society is giving knowledge. So knowledge doesn't mean that sort of knowledge you get in school of, okay, there's what this material world is composed of. Okay, there's atoms, then you reduce it, there's subatomic particles, there's electrons, there's neutrons, there's subatomic particles, there's quarks. Some people say there's strings, and then they get confused after that. So you can study this kind of knowledge, but this isn't the kind of knowledge we're talking about. This kind of knowledge, as Prabhupada is putting here, is just transformations of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, transformed into various branches of advancement of knowledge. So because the ultimate goal of this knowledge, although in one sense people are trying to understand why they're here, it doesn't actually give them knowledge of how to overcome death and why they're here, what their identity is. So devotees aren't necessarily, it's not that we're ignorant of these things, but we give actual knowledge in society. Knowledge devoid of relationship with Krishna is just illusion, as Krishna told Lord Brahma. So we're interested in giving people knowledge which will actually help them. Knowledge of these other things is not helpful. You can make advancements in technology, as is seen. Somebody built this building because somebody had some sort of material knowledge. Electricity came about because some sort of knowledge has been done, some research has been done in that area. We have medicine because people have made research in that area and there's some sort of material knowledge there. So that knowledge is there. But it's knowledge that helps society in the way of just like saving the coat of a drowning man. It doesn't actually help anybody. Temporarily, it may do so, but it's like you feed a man one day, but ultimately the man has to die. So better to solve the problem of death. Unfortunately, people don't think like this. The main thing is that the main point of the education, that this knowledge we give to other people, ultimately, it's Krishna. Ultimately, we have to inform people that they're servants of Krishna. But that begins with understanding that they're not, especially here, it begins with understanding that people are not their body. We have to give knowledge to people that they're not their body, they're not their mind, which is very revolutionary to most people. But some people can't even understand it. It requires a higher intellect, actually. You see, people who are addicted to eating meat. Generally, they find it's very difficult for them to understand the fact that they're even not their body. It's very, very difficult. It's something like inconceivable to them. They either identify with their body, or they identify with the object of their senses, their body, or they identify with the senses themselves. They can't understand what is consciousness. They can't understand they're not their mind, etc. like this. It's very difficult. So we have to inform people of this. Any other attempt to help people, any other attempt to educate people is at best misinformed, and at worst, it's harmful to other people. Not just knowledge, also any sort of welfare work people do with the aim of helping people. Because material knowledge, it can't help, it has no use in devoid of being devoid of spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge, it gives us a chance for material knowledge, and can give us material comforts. At best, spiritual knowledge, it gives us access, or a chance at least, for eternal, blissful life. Even if one comes in slight contact with Krishna consciousness. Even if somebody just sees a Harinam party, that's the most benefit that living entity has received for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, for millions and millions of years. And that slight even if he didn't get a chance to receive knowledge necessarily, but he's come in contact with devotional service, that's immensely better for him than any sort of mundane study of this world. Such even a small advancement, as Krishna says in Gita, was that svalapam apyasya dharma setraito mahato bhayat. Even a small advancement in Krishna consciousness, it saves one from the greatest type of fear, which the greatest type of fear is falling back down into hellish life and animal life. And ultimately, this sort of trend, this spiritual knowledge, it gives Krishna's association. Vidura is wanting this knowledge ultimately because he wants to associate with Krishna. He's hearing, Uddhava, you're associated with Krishna. I didn't have a chance to be so associated with Krishna. He may be thinking like this. He was in the court of the Kurus. Uddhava was in Dwarka. He had so many dealings with Krishna. So he wants to hear about Krishna because, ultimately he wants to attain an association with Krishna. Also, hearing about Krishna is not different from being in his association. You can understand it like that. So ultimately, we want to give people Krishna, but there's some preliminary things we have to do so. Like I was speaking, we have to tell people that they're not their bodies. Devotees, as I said here, they wonder, is the role, as characteristics of servants of Vishnu, they wander all over the world, enlightening people with this knowledge of Krishna. Prabhupada says, the servants of the Lord Vishnu are entrusted with this responsible work. So they wander all over the earth to all other planets in the universe. And Prabhupada continues, this knowledge which was received deserves to be distributed in human society, especially to persons like Vidura. Generally, this sort of knowledge is reserved for persons like Vidura. Just like Kunti prays to Krishna, Tata Paramahamsanam Muninam Amalatmanam, Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam Katam Pashyama Histriyaha. Generally, knowledge of Bhakti Yoga, it's only given to Paramahamsas, actually. It's not given to the general mass of people, and she includes herself in that category of just women. How can a woman like myself understand this? Of course, she's a great devotee nevertheless, but generally, people aren't given this confidential knowledge of Krishna. But the devotees are very merciful in that they distribute this knowledge. They travel all over the world, as did Srila Prabhupada, and they distribute this knowledge. They distribute this knowledge, and they induce others to distribute this knowledge. Just like we have this temple, Srila Prabhupada established so many temples. Other acharyas have established so many temples. Or the idea that, of course, deities are there, and the worship of the deity goes on there, but the main function, not necessarily every temple, but it should be like this. Traditionally, it was like this. The role of a temple is that it's a center of education, it's a center of learning. Formerly, at least major dhams, tirthas in India, people will go there with the idea of with learning, just like Varanasi was formerly a center of learning. Navadvip at the time was a center of learning, although it wasn't necessarily a dham at the time. Sri Vaishnava holy places, similarly centers of learning. Sri Rangam, etc., places like that. Many learned people resided there. So it was the deity is there, but principally, and people go there knowing it's a holy place, but temples, they're meant to be centers of learning. And the inmates residing within the temple, the brahmanas generally, who staff the temple, the role of a brahman is to teach. A brahman is a teacher. So when people come to temples, the brahmanas teach them. That's what's meant to happen. Not just people who are coming, not just new people off the street, etc., like that, but there's also people who are coming, even amongst other devotees at the temple. A temple is a place for learning, it's a place for studying Shastra and entering into Shastra. So one may be non-devotees come to temples, they're to be given education by those living within the temple. So similarly too, those living within the temple should also be educated in their own philosophy. They should deepen their understanding of Shastra, both by self-study and by hearing from others. Just like we have classes every single day. Prabhupada instituted classes every single day for the strength of the devotees and also to understand the Bhagavatam from the different angles of vision. So the education is both meant for ourselves and is meant for other people. So temples are centers of learning, and they're centers from which we distribute knowledge, both to people who are coming to the temple. Unfortunately, nowadays, both here in India, but especially here in the West, people don't come to temples. So we have to go out and we have to distribute knowledge to others, because generally people are just interested in their own sense gratification. We have to induce them to understand that life is not just meant for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And it's, our main engagement, the main engagement of devotees in general, I would say, is the ultimate crux of the Krishna consciousness movement, in one sense, if we were to sum it up, is just distributing this knowledge to other people, becoming fortunate ourselves, and also giving that opportunity to others to become fortunate. So therefore, we distribute books, we distribute the holy name, we distribute prasad, etc. like this. Main thing is knowledge. Because that knowledge is the main means by which people become liberated. And is the main means, practically speaking, putting philosophy aside, if people have knowledge of Krishna consciousness, they'll take up Krishna consciousness. People may be getting prasad regularly, and prasad, it prepares them for Krishna consciousness, but on a very practical basis, it's when people read Srila Prabhupada's books and they understand knowledge about Krishna and they understand knowledge of they're not their body, then they can actually qualify themselves to gain access into Krishna's pastimes, and actually make advancement of Krishna consciousness. Of course, there's exceptions, just like, for example, Ajamil, who was saved from a very dangerous situation by chanting the holy names. But one thing is he had to come back, he was given life again, and then he had to practice very vigorously. It's not that he was liberated instantly just by chanting that one holy name. So he had to immerse himself in knowledge, in other words. So this knowledge is very important. Without knowledge, we can be doing these other things, but if knowledge isn't there, or it just kind of, I guess, descends into a ritual, something like that, something that is what's happened with Hinduism. The sadhana may be there to like some extent or another, but because there's no knowledge, some effect is still there, but the people themselves aren't so much into it because it's just seen as a ritual. So the knowledge is very important. Otherwise, we may be performing Krishna consciousness. Say we're worshiping the deity, we're coming to the temple, we're chanting even, but if we don't have knowledge of what we're doing, then also we won't make advancement like that. We may be chanting 16 rounds, but if we don't have knowledge of the offenses, then we'll take birth after birth, committing the same offenses as we're chanting the holy names. We may be worshiping the deity, but we may be doing so, we may be committing so many aparads. For instance, among other things, people may be coming to the temple, but they may not understand that a temple is a sacred place. You should bow down to Srila Prabhupada before you come into the temple. As quite often, I see many temples, people come into the temple, they just walk into the room, and they don't know. They're not given training. They're not educated that you have to bow down to the spiritual master. Spiritual master is the vaya medium through which you understand Krishna. Is not that you just stroll into the room and walk up to the altar and start offering prayers to Krishna. You offer obeisance to the spiritual master. You offer obeisances to Krishna, etc. like this. There's so many different things. But people have to be given, my point is, people have to be given knowledge in order to make advancement of Krishna consciousness. It's very, very important. Of course, that's once they get to Krishna consciousness. Even before that, people in this society, they have to be given knowledge of so many different things. People don't have the base knowledge of that they're not their body in the society. People have to be given knowledge. They have to be educated that to avoid the forced sinful activities. People don't know. People eat meat, they think it's something normal. Everybody eats meat in the society, but they don't understand this meat eating is one of the reasons this giant hurricane came through and just killed a whole bunch of people. Meat eating is the reason why, because cows are being slaughtered en masse, so similarly too, wars are being started, and the population of those countries slaughtering cows are also being slaughtered just like the cows. People don't know. In one sense, it's innocent, but in one sense, it's innocent. It's true. People are raised like this. They're just ignorant. But they have to be given knowledge. It's just like a child doesn't know to touch his hand to a stove. It will burn him. Because he doesn't have knowledge. He can do so and then get burned. But the unfortunate situation is people don't understand that the sinful activities they're committing, which is normalized in society, things like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication. Gambling is a little bit less. Some people do it. But they don't understand the implications of what these things entail. They may have some sort of moral sense that, we shouldn't do these things, but they don't understand why we shouldn't do these things. They may even understand that, drinking is bad, and it negatively affects the brain, and alcoholism is not a good thing, and from a sort of mundane standpoint, but they don't understand ultimately that you're involving yourself in karma, and you have to enter into a hellish situation after this life, and you have this rare human form of life. And you have this one shot to make it, not one shot, but one shot for the next however many billions of years to make it work. So people have to be given this knowledge. People have to be educated that we should avoid sinful activity, not on just some moral grounds, but even for our own self-interest, so to say. And that life is more than just eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, as Prabhupada is saying here. That, this knowledge of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, is actually not knowledge at all, and it's not real life. So people have to be given something superior. People are given education in these things, unfortunately. So therefore, people take this eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and its various transformations of philosophy, material science, etc., things like this. They take these mundane things to be knowledge, because they're educated, and they're educated that we're the body, basically, in simple terms. The education in this material society is trash. So we have to give them real education. We have to give them Rajavidya. Rajavidya Rajakohyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratakshava Gamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartamavyam. That this is the king of education. It's happily executed. It purifies one of these sinful things. Pavitram Idam Uttamam is the most pure knowledge, and the most pure knowledge also purifies those who take to it. So it can purify one of these sinful activities upon gaining these knowledge. And it makes people happy. Susukam kartamavyam, it's happily executed. When people have knowledge, they become happy. Generally, unless somebody is incredibly ignorant or has factual learning, then, if somebody's in an in-between ground where they're just existing, in other words, most people are miserable. Those people who are happy materially, they have either, typically it's people who have some sort of mental handicap or something like this, and they don't understand their suffering, or it's people who are so highly advanced in their material situation where they can avoid all such material sufferings. But even then, you see, people who have everything, often it's not uncommon that they're still incredibly unhappy. They commit suicide, they deal with depression, they strive for more even though they have everything. So this knowledge can actually make people happy. This knowledge of Krishna, this knowledge that you're not your body, you're eternal servant of Krishna, it makes people happy. And we're offering it to everyone. As Prabhupada is saying here, this knowledge is to be distributed in human society, especially to devotees, but to everybody. And the thing is, this knowledge, some different points, just to organize my thoughts. One thing is, devotees, we have to give this knowledge. That's very important, as it's being said here. As characteristic, literally it's said here, as what characterizes a servant of Vishnu is that he wanders all over the world in the interest of others, etc., like that. Vidura is speaking like that. So this is a characteristic stated directly here, is what characterizes a servant of Vishnu. And so Prabhupada elaborates, he says they travel over the interest of others. Doing what? It's not that they just go and see and say, how are you doing? They give them knowledge. So it's characteristic of a Vaishnava to do these things, and it's necessary if people are to actually be happy and to understand this. Devotees have to give this knowledge. Otherwise, people can't understand this knowledge. Even if they come to the material understanding that we're not this body, they can't understand what is Krishna. They can't understand what they are, and they get misled by Buddhism, Mayavad, etc. like this. Prabhupada says, real transcendental knowledge descends in the disciplic succession from the Lord to Uddhava, from Uddhava to Vidura, and so on. Such supreme transcendental knowledge is not possible to achieve by the process of imperfect speculation, etc. like that. So, in other words, if devotees don't take up this process of distributing knowledge, who's going to do it? Otherwise, people can't access this knowledge. It's the function of the devotees that they distribute this knowledge in society. Otherwise, people can't understand this knowledge. Nobody can come to the conclusion by their own mental facility that Krishna who is a blackish boy in Vrindavan, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. People can't understand. It's just like Vidura is asking Uddhava to narrate this because he can't understand. He knows that Uddhava has this knowledge, and the only way I'm going to get this knowledge is Uddhava tells me this knowledge. Therefore, he's imploring Uddhava like this. So it's the duty of devotees to distribute this knowledge And it's also ordered by the Lord himself. Well, first, the Lord himself does this. Krishna himself does this. He also orders others to do so, just like Lord Chaitanya and Chaitanya Charitamrita. Of course, there's that famous verse, Bharata Bhumiti Hoilo, Manisha Janma Jar Janma Sarta Kakori Kara Para Upakara. I order you could take it every man within Bharata Varsha. You could take Bharata as the whole world as well, to both make his life perfect and to teach this to others, etc. There's another verse somewhere in the 5th chapter in the Adi Leela, something like that. Lord Chaitanya, as the transcendental gardener, he orders every man within this universe to distribute this fruit of love of God. So the order is there for every devotee, for every man, actually, according to that. And yeah, so this work is taken up by devotees in general, so it's very important for us to do so, to inform others of so. It's real, so many things could be said. It's real welfare work. We're actually helping people. Otherwise, all these other methods of helping people, it can't help people at all. There's so many people, so many foundations, so many people, millionaires giving millions and billions now, actually, in charity, but it's all just going to complete waste. You can feed so many people, you can open up so many centers for cancer, you can make so many relief efforts after disasters, but it doesn't help people. It doesn't ultimately solve the problem of death, ultimately. You can invest so much into healthcare, but it doesn't change the fact that people have to die. You can cure disease, but it doesn't change the fact that anyway, people have to die. People you see old people sometimes, they go, I've known people, they go through these very elaborate surgeries at like 85, 90 years old when the body is obviously failing anyway, and they die shortly after that. What's the use? You solve the immediate problem through so much difficulty, but still you have to die. People don't think like this. So we're benefiting the world by distributing this sort of knowledge. Specifically, we're distributing knowledge. We're benefiting the world by distributing knowledge of Gita and Bhagavatam. Specifically, this knowledge is within these two books, and as these two books specifically, Prabhupada stressed. Generally, Bhagavatam is there, and generally our acharyas have emphasized. I mean, it's there in the Bhagavatam itself. People in this age of Kali will get light from this Purana. Practically speaking, for most people, they can't understand Bhagavatam from the very beginning. It's difficult. So Gita is also there, the ABCDs of spiritual life. Some people, even then, as if quite often I speak to people, they've read Bhagavad Gita and they couldn't understand anything. It's not uncommon. So people require. So these two books are required to be spread throughout society. And speaking about confidential knowledge, the most confidential knowledge, even more so than Bhagavatam, actually, or rather it is more confidential than Bhagavatam because it elaborates on what's in Bhagavatam. The Chaitanya and Charitamrita are incredibly important to human society. It should be distributed. Prabhupada wanted it distributed, as did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, because it gives the highest realization of God, even higher or more direct, we can say, than what's otherwise given in the Bhagavatam. Everything's there in the Bhagavatam. In one sense, I mean, Chaitanya and Charitamrita is nothing more than Bhagavatam, but it highlights the inner meaning of Bhagavatam. Just like Lord Brahma was also spoken, same knowledge that Uddhava got, but Krishna highlighted, the same secret was revealed to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma, he was given the secret of devotional service. Uddhava was also given the secret of devotional service, but Uddhava got a little more glimpse into that secret. So similarly, too, the secret's in there in the Bhagavatam, but the Chaitanya Charitamrita gives a higher realization of that secret. And it gives a lens as actually to read the Bhagavatam through. So, speaking about benefiting the world with knowledge and this highest knowledge, so Chaitanya Charitamrita gives that. Lord Chaitanya himself, he gave that most confidential knowledge of himself. Back to this point of the duty of the devotees to preach it. So, speaking about confidential knowledge too, is the duty of confidential devotees to also spread this knowledge in society. It's not that it's meant for some. In other words, it's just like some bhakta comes and immediately he may be distributing books. It's not that it's a lowly service or something like that. You see, even highly advanced devotees, they engage in this service. For example, Narada Muni himself, amongst many, Srila Prabhupada himself, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, etc. himself, they also, speaking this because sometimes there's a tendency to think that advanced devotees, when you become an advanced devotee, you stop preaching and you just engage in your own, you become a bhajananandi or something like that. Some people have a conception like this. But you see that even confidential devotees, they still, here I will read 2 quotes. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, purports by Srila Prabhupada. He says, quote, "It is the work of Krishna's confidential devotees to turn everyone into a Krishna Bhakta. If the confidential devotees do not take up the task of elevating everyone to Krishna consciousness, then who will do it?" Another one for Chaitanya Charitamrita. "One who tries to relieve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's anxiety for the fallen souls is certainly a most dear and confidential devotee of the Lord." So, enlightening human society, spreading this knowledge in human society, is taken up by glorious devotees, actually. It's taken up, we have the fortunate opportunity to take it up for the beginning, and it's continued to do so even in the perfectional stage, by those perfect devotees, etc., like this. So yeah. Another point, just in general, is symptomatic of love. So a confidential devotee, an advanced devotee, is characterized because he loves Krishna. He loves Krishna as his Lord and Master in different relationships, but generally you can say that the quality of love, if one has affection for his Master, or if one has affection for Krishna, then it's natural that one wants to see Krishna's name, fame, etc., like they spread throughout the whole world. It's just natural. Maybe it's more relatable as we're all disciples of different spiritual masters. And it's natural for us to glorify our spiritual masters to others. It's natural for a disciple to want to see his spiritual master glorified amongst society. It's just a natural tendency. So similarly, too, it's natural for a pure devotee to want to see Krishna glorified throughout the world. And he glorifies Krishna to others. So yeah, etc., like this. So Vidura, he understood that Uddhava possessed this sort of love for Krishna. He understood that Uddhava possessed this highly advanced, or maybe not exactly, he may not have known the nature, etc., the exact nature of Uddhava's love, or his exact advancement, but he knew Uddhava was a very special devotee with confidential knowledge. And so he's imploring Uddhava here to speak him that knowledge. And because, well, for that reason I mentioned it. And also, he's saying another way you could take this verse, it comes out a little bit here in how Prabhupada is translated. It is quite fit that you describe the self-knowledge with which you have been enlightened by the Lord himself. So Vidura is wanting, as natural for Uddhava to glorify the Lord, as natural as it is for any devotee, and Vidura is imploring, he's trying to push Uddhava to please speak to me more about this. Tell me more about Krishna's glory. Tell me what Krishna told you, please. And he's saying, almost as if it's your duty to speak at Uddhava. Why? Why is it your duty? Because it's the duty, as a characteristic of Vishnu's servants. You should tell me, Vidura is speaking something like this, you should tell me, because Vaishnavas wander all over the world for this purpose. This is the purpose you came to this world. This is the purpose you're here on this earth. Please speak to me this transcendental knowledge. It's your duty, Uddhava. Of course, Uddhava says no after this in some verses, and then he redirects him to Maitreya, although technically Uddhava already spoke to him this knowledge. So, that's what's going on in this verse and in the other verses. So, I can end my class there and take anything anybody has at this point. Otherwise, we can end. Yes?
Prabhu, giving knowledge to others is really important. So we distribute books and we share knowledge by sharing the books with them. One interesting thing that happened with me when I was distributing books in India was I met a man, cycle shops in India. Mm-hmm. They basically repair the punctures and stuff.
Puncture, yeah.
Yeah. So there was this man with very old, dirty clothes, mm-hmm. And basically I couldn't find anyone else. So I just went to him in an arrogant attitude, saying, "Okay, you take Bhagavad Gita, read it, Why can't you read it? Basically, I was thinking, I read Bhagavad Gita, he didn't read clearly. And then he said, no, I can't read. Why are you giving this to me? Really humble. And then I said, okay, no problem. And then I was walking away, but he walked behind me. And then he said, yes, I'll take your Bhagavad Gita. Please come to my home. And then he takes me to his home. He has a really clean home, nice home, and with children, daughter-in-laws. And he calls his daughter-in-law immediately. Bring 350 rupees. And then she is absolutely surrendered. Mostly when men, for example, they talk to their wives, if they say, okay, I'm going to buy Bhagavad Gita, there is some resistance. The wife will say, no, why are you taking? But she was really humble. She immediately brought out the money, and then he took the Bhagavad Gita. And I was basically, I didn't have any words, but it reminded me a verse in the Gita that Tesham satayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam apyantite. Means even if someone is not educated, even if they haven't read the Gita, if they are serving Krishna with love and devotion, Krishna gives them all knowledge. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu meets a Brahmana in South India somewhere, Kurmagram. And he didn't know how to read the Gita, but he had all knowledge. There are some instances like this when people don't have knowledge externally, but internally they are fully Krishna conscious. So sometimes, it's interesting. Krishna reminds us that, okay, there are certain other ways of getting knowledge as well.
One thing with that, just a few points. It's possible. By culture, that is possible. Unfortunately, what can happen is that when that culture, I don't know the exact background, but presumably they're coming from a culture family, that's their background, presumably. And the unfortunate thing is, what happens if that continues, in other words, if that culture is there without knowledge, then people take it as a ritual, and gradually the whole thing begins to degrade, as is happening with Hinduism. The hodgepodge known as Hinduism. Even though, all these things are there within India, deity worship is there. People understand that. People understand puja. People understand japa. These things are well known, and even people may be doing it. But what happens is, because of a lack of understanding, first they may give it up altogether. That happens even with the Krishna conscious children. You see this. They may be attached to doing kirtan, and they come to the temple, but they don't have knowledge of the philosophy. So, of course, there are caveats. In some cases, it's not that one has to be a learned scholar or something like that. Even he doesn't necessarily have to understand the philosophy. It's possible, Prabhupada himself said, it's possible to become Krishna conscious without even reading the books. He said that in relation to dioramas, he said that people can see these dioramas and understand Bhagavatam like that. So it's possible. But at least when I say knowledge, I don't mean book knowledge. Even book knowledge doesn't help one. To some degree it does, but book knowledge doesn't mean realization. The main thing is realization. So if the realization is there, actual realization, and the understanding, we can say is a better word, that I'm not this body, I'm a servant of Krishna, that is the basis of everything. Otherwise, if that basic knowledge is there, some people may go on. I'm not saying there are so many cases of people worshiping, Vaishnavas even, they worship Krishna, but they may not necessarily have extensive philosophical knowledge why they worship Krishna or do so. But as far as keeping people around and keeping them serious, for most people, knowledge is practical. And even if for those philosophically not inclined, at least the basic understanding. In other words, there are many people who worship Krishna, but they think I'm the father of Krishna or something like this. It's very prominent. I'm sure you know more than me these kind of things.
Yeah. These days, so many people are educated with so many false ideas that this knowledge is required. Exceptionally, some uneducated people, if someone is uneducated, it's an exception that, oh man, you haven't studied really. And for them to be Krishna conscious, it's just a very rare thing. But yeah, I agree. Largely, with today's education, people need to be given this knowledge.
And there, obviously, I'm speaking that, but like you're saying, there are exceptions. Not everybody's literate. Okay? But Prabhupada said it's still possible for such a man to be Krishna conscious. There's the Brahmana from Sri Rangam, for instance, which you cited. So yeah. So yeah. All right, thank you. Anything else from anybody? Yes.
Actually, this is also in India. You can have this many examples that this devotee, they can invite you to house and they tell that we respect Krishna and we can pay, and they can respect everyone.
Mm-hmm.
For them is not, maybe they pious, they like to show their piety, like we also have this example. We also went for book distribution, and we should go back to temple, but we have so many boxes, like maybe, this book distribution in India, we should have like 3-4 Bhagavatam sets, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and a few boxes, Bhagavad Gita and this, and we don't have a car. We should go back to the temple. We don't have a car. We stop some people, but these cars, all of them was very small. And one guy stopped, and he was big car. And we put all the boxes, like even on the roof, on this car. And he told, "I respect you," or everything like this. And told, you purchase Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't have Srimad Bhagavatam. He told, "I promise I purchase Srimad Bhagavatam, but you should bring the Srimad Bhagavatam to my house, and I will purchase in Srimad Bhagavatam. We make some kirtan like this. And after a few days, we came to his house with Srimad Bhagavatam and sit, and his father came. And immediately we understand that now we'll be fighting now, because the father came to protect his son from purchasing this Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's big money. Why you should spend this? You're already Hindu. You're already so much pious and everything. And they start to speak so much Mayavada, so much, like this. Because externally they respect you like anything. But if you ask them to purchase Srimad Bhagavatam, if you ask them to go with me for book distribution, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told like this, Bhagavatam told like this, Madhyamadikari should acting like this, you can see the reaction of people. And another point, that Vaishnava can be not educated, but we expecting in Prabhupada explaining, Guru Maharaj told in one lecture, like I heard recently, that we should be educated because we should teach in other people. It means Brahmana means he should be educated. He should present this knowledge accordingly, and he should have this proper understanding. Education is required for everyone, especially for us.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point in relation to India. One thing I was thinking in regards to that, like a good example of like how people don't necessarily have to be learned or like educated. They don't have to know the Shatra Shloki, for instance, among other things. But okay, say they're doing worship of Krishna, they should at least know they shouldn't worship demigods, which, as you're saying, a lot of people don't. So devotees have to be that. We have to be that unfortunate character that goes to people and say, "Hey, you can't worship other demigods. Krishna is the supreme personality of God, and Vishnu, and Shiva and Brahma are Lord." People should know. It disturbs some people's minds, but they should know this. So this sort of knowledge is necessary. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Anything else, men?
Hare Krishna. Actually, it's the point about this knowledge you're saying. Like if you see any person coming to Krishna, like they initially worship so many demigods in so many lifetimes.
Very often. Yeah.
So it's like I see, like in my own family, my father was devoted to Shiva, my mother was, like she was doing Durga's worship, so many things. But they listen to Bhagavatam. That's where I got devotion. Yeah. So means in that case, like Prabhupada says that better than like somebody asks him a question like if somebody is practicing is a devout Christian and one who is devoted to Vedas and he doesn't know the Supreme, but still Prabhupada said this is better. So the point I'm saying is that like they are into demigod worship and so many hodgepodge things are happening, like Sai Baba also they are worshiping. But then this is because they have faith. But then this knowledge part is after, say, like after Srila Prabhupada or somebody like him, they came, means somebody like Srila Prabhupada, after Srila Prabhupada's coming, people started, like I myself, I did so many things, I chanted so many names, but then Srila Prabhupada made the concept clear to everybody, whether it's east or west. So that's the reason, like, they are already, means they are already devoted to some faith in Ganesh or something, and they fear. Because Krishna gives that faith to them anyways. So that fate we have to cut down, of course, by giving knowledge to them. And that's where we do preaching. And this other part was like, in India, most of the people, means knowingly, unknowingly, they want to serve Krishna. Like the person who used to stitch clothes of Radha Rasbihari, he was a Muslim. So his relatives also opposed. But still, till the end of his life, he was stitching clothes for Radha Rasbihari. And once a pujari asked him, that why you take every time measurement of the Lord? And he said, you feed him daily, Bhoga, you don't have trust. So that devotee had so much knowledge, with that brahmachari. But then he told, you are feeding him, but you don't trust that he is eating or not. Because he used to take measurement every time. So, and till the end of, and Prabhupada assigned in one room specifically, and he used to, till the end of his life, he passed off now. So, that way also it may happen, like maybe the cultural background helps actually.
Yeah, it does. Especially approaching Krishna consciousness, the faith that comes to Krishna consciousness. One short thing that just came to mind as you were saying it. I read it in Giriraj Swami's book. He was saying, and it's true actually, that when devotees first went to India, actually Prabhupada was doing it, Prabhupada made the comment, something like along the lines of, practically, I'm the only person in India speaking against demigod worship. Something, and it's true. I mean, at that time it was like anything goes. Still, it's as less like that now, but Giriraj Swami, he was narrating how, I mean, obviously Prabhupada's disciples were also preaching like that. And people liked the devotees in India, but at one point they became disturbed. Many people would approach Giriraj, the brahmachari, and say, like, what you're doing is nice, all these things you're doing nice. But why do you have to speak about, like, why do you have to speak against, like, Shiva? Why do you have to speak against, like, etc. like that? So but it's necessary, otherwise people don't understand. Yeah. So, you have something, Rishi? Okay. Anything for the women? Yes. Oh, I think it is Venkat Bhatta, yeah. There's one but I was just trying to think of his name.
This is a concept that I've been pondering on about for a while, but how would you describe the difference between knowledge and intelligence according to the Bhagavatam?
Knowledge and intelligence, well, I guess it gets like technical. Knowledge is more of an object, how to say, something like that. Intelligence is like one of our faculties which we use. So just in simple terms, I guess boiling it down, knowledge is to be understood through intelligence. In other words, the knowledge is Bhagavatam, and we have our own intelligence, so we should apply that intelligence to Bhagavatam. The knowledge is coming from Krishna. Knowledge is how to say, I don't want to get too like whatever semantic, but knowledge is like an external thing, right? We don't, although we're such Chidananda, generally we're taking it in terms of knowledge of Gita and Bhagavatam like that. Knowledge refers to what the spiritual master tells us. It refers to what we read in Shastra, what we read in Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is knowledge, Gita is knowledge. Now it's up to us ourselves to apply ourselves and understand that knowledge. To understand that knowledge, it requires intelligence. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Yeah, so. You have something, Mataji?
In the process of straightforwardly preaching knowledge, is there a chance of being unnecessarily harsh in our presentation under the guise of our harsh words being compassionate?
Yes. So obviously there's that verse there in the 11th canto, a sadhu's words cuts, but they shouldn't cut so hard that the person, he himself is cut from Krishna consciousness. For instance, it's not that so. I'll give a very gross example. Say like somebody's like, you go on the street and you find some like very like interested college student and you start like speaking to him super like heavily, how like he's living like a dog and like he has to give up, etc. like that. So there's a way to preach that also requires a little intelligence. We should present appropriately based on who we're dealing with. We have the knowledge, we have to present according to time, place, and circumstance, obviously. And the person, time, place, and person is sometimes called like that. So according to the person we're dealing with, we have to present that knowledge like that. If we start speaking high philosophy to somebody, and to somebody on the street, for instance, is not good for them. It actually doesn't benefit them. Although it benefits them in one way because ultimately they're hearing something about Krishna, but we could benefit them more by just giving them something basic, inviting them to the temple like that. That's more like, I guess, like a long-term view of their Krishna consciousness. So those are like, I've just given extreme examples, obviously a case-by-case basis, but it is possible to be like that, to overgive somebody knowledge. Just like an offense is something like that, to explain to somebody the glories of the holy name, if they're not qualified to do so. So neither is it beneficial for you because you made an offense, nor is it beneficial for the other person because they don't have sufficient eligibility to understand that. They may misuse that knowledge, so to say. They may misunderstand Krishna's position, etc., like that. So just simply, yes, it's possible for like that, to do like that. We have to see somebody's individual capacity to receive the knowledge and etc. like that. Is that okay? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.